How you doing? Rowan here, Equity Solar Brokers. It's a Saturday, I'm in my comfy jersey, and I just noticed that our Google rankings, we're getting a lot of clicks on the three-phase stuff. So I just want to make a video about three-phase solar and highlight that we've got some blogs on the idea. Three-phase is really interesting, right? See, most people think if they've got a three-phase home, they need a three-phase solar system. And that's right, that's wrong, maybe not. Let's talk about it, right? First things first though, the key thing is cost. How much do you want to spend on your solar system? See, if you want a three-phase solar system and you want it to perform really well and to start things like water pumps in a power outage, yeah, you've got to get a really expensive system. It's going to be, in today's market, more than 35K to get a three-phase solar system with batteries that's going to give you a great backup experience. Now, you could spend a little bit less and get something for a bit cheaper, but the guarantee isn't there in terms of how well it will perform. And actually, single phase might be your best three-phase option. So this is going against the grain. There's a lot of Sparkies and solar companies who disagree with me on this. And I'm okay with that, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, through our solar broker service, they quote what they think's right for your home. And my clients get the options to see. But there's a lot of companies that will put single phase on a three-phase home. If the home has the right transformer and the cables coming into the property are pretty juicy, maybe 63 amp per phase, that sort of thing. So we go into that in a lot of detail in this blog here. But let me just load up Microsoft Paint for just a moment, all right? So most homes are three-phase out in rural areas because especially if they're an older home, when they were built, they were probably the only home on the street. They might have been the only home for like 5 kilometers. And so they're three-phase because power just comes in three phases, and that's how power works. And why take power off one phase or one power line when you can take power off all three, right? It means the power companies or the lines companies can deliver less energy down each phase and still power that house. So that's why many homes are three-phase. So if you just imagine you've got your beautiful power lines here, just amazing. Look at that drawing, right? And essentially, as I'm saying, a beautiful home over here, built in the 80s, 90s, in a rural area, it's got one, it's got two, it's got three phases coming in. And look, it serves its purpose, absolutely. As I'm saying, power resilience, getting enough power off those power lines. If one goes down, you've got the other two, it's great. However, as I've said, it's really expensive to get a large three-phase system that's going to perform really well in a grid outage and work incredibly efficiently. Because here's the thing, what tends to happen is in a three-phase home, one phase will go to the kitchen and the living area. Another phase might go to the bathroom and the hallway, something like maybe the shed. And another phase might head off out to the bedrooms. But you get the idea. There's basically 1, 2, 3 sections in a house. And there are some things in a house that will use 2 or 3 of the phases. So you've got an induction cooktop. They tend to use 2 phases, right? Welders use 3, hoists use 3. But generally speaking, most appliances just use 1 phase. But just because it's a single phase appliance doesn't mean it's all connected to the same phase, right? You could have a single phase appliance in the kitchen running on phase 1 and a single phase appliance in the bedroom running on phase 2. But it creates these different sections in the house. And if you don't have solar, that's great because you've got consistent power supply. And if there's a car crash down the road and one phase stops working, well, hey, maybe the other 2 phases are still working. And so maybe that's why you or your neighbor have said before, yeah, it was really funny. We had a power cut and parts of the house didn't work, but other parts did. So that's the whole phasing thing, right? Now let's talk solar for a moment, okay? If you put a 3-phase solar system in, look at these big, beautiful orange panels. Imagine if they were orange. Big, beautiful orange panels. Now what happens with three phase is the energy has to go to each section of the house. And the inverter, let's put a big old inverter on the side, the inverter can only ever send up to 1/3 down each phase. So if it's a 10 kilowatt inverter, it can do 3.3, 3.3, 3.3, and that's the maximum output per phase. These are some brands that will do a little bit more, up to 50%, but generally speaking, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And sounds like a great idea, right? But what if everyone's in the kitchen, or the kitchen and the living room, and maybe the kitchen and the living room are on one phase, and so there needs to be a lot of power there, but you can only have 1/3 of the power, and there's no one down the hallways or whatever, no one in the bedrooms. And so with three-phase solar, what can happen is everyone wants power over here, but 2/3 of the power is going over here, not being used, and then it's being sold to the grid, right? Or it's going into the battery. But generally speaking, batteries are expensive, and so they charge up by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock, you know, the system works inefficiently. So that's one of the downsides to three phase, is it has to distribute evenly. But then the other thing is, if you've got a 10 kilowatt inverter and it can only do 3.3 per phase, well, let's talk about that. How much is 3.3? Well, your jug pulls 2 kilowatt. Your toaster probably about the same, depends on the toaster, eh? Right? You've got heat pumps pull maybe 600 watt to a kilowatt. But anyway, 3.3 is not that much. And so the downside with a three-phase solar system that's maybe like a 10 kilowatt, the downside is you don't actually get that much juice per phase. And that can be a problem if there's a power cut and you want a really good backup experience. And you can't have a really, really good backup experience on a three-phase, a medium-sized three-phase home that uses lots of energy. You can't have a really good backup experience for less than 35k right now, unless the stars align and we can arrange a single-phase system. So we'll come back to the single-phase idea, but that's a bit about three-phase. The other thing as well is it's just inefficient. Why spend 35 grand on a system that might not save you as much as it could, because you're selling energy on the phases that don't need the power? So let me just create a new one, a new paint, right? So now you've got your power lines, boom, 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 boom. Now let's say that you've got a house and you've got a shed, okay? Probably a lower pitch on that shed. It's probably not this small, but anyway, maybe it's down the hill, maybe it's a big one, and there's a hill. Now you might opt to retain three phases into your site, which I would recommend. I would never recommend someone downgrades from three phase, unless very unique scenarios, but you might keep three phases coming in, 1, 2, 3. They might come to your meter box, wherever that is. It's probably attached to the house or the shed or something. And then what you might do is you might have three phases go to the shed, 1, 2, 3, right? And then you might, there's still three phases going to the house, but you might only keep one phase live to the house, right? And it might be this one, but it comes off as well and it goes to the house. And in that case, now you've got green solar panels. In that case, all of the solar energy that's generated goes into the inverter, and then it goes around the house. Woo! Like that. And so let's say you've got a 10 kilowatt solar system. All of that 10 kilowatt is available to everything in the house. And so people are in the kitchen, they've got the jug, they've got the microwave on, whatever. And this is grid on, grid off, whatever. It's efficient, right? And what you don't use goes into the battery, you use it later. But the upside is that you're not wasting energy in the bedrooms, and you get 10 kilowatt of output on one phase. So the Tesla Powerwall 3 can do that. The latest SIG Energy can do that. Sungrow, there's lots of solutions, right? But 10 kilowatt per phase is heaps. 10 kilowatt per phase is like heat pump. You could turn the jug, the toaster, lights, Wi-Fi, the fridge is going brrr, and it's probably going to do it, right? It's probably going to do it. So what an experience. I mean, if you go back 10 years ago and you say to someone who was off-grid, hey, in 10 years from now, there's going to be solar solutions that cost 30K or 25K, that sort of money, with a battery, with the panels, with the 10 kilowatt inverter, and it's going to be capable of doing 10 kilowatt continuous. Those people, those off-grid, they would have said, hell no way. That's $100,000 right now. But honestly, it's about 1/3 the price. And so, just to like kind of speak to that, I might just load up our Google reviews, because it's all public stuff, right? Equity Solar. What do we got? Reviews. This guy Matt, he's got an 8 kilowatt. He's 26 panels, and 8 kilowatt continuous output on his Pylon Tech battery, and he's blown away with how capable it is. You know, they turned off the power to test, and he's like, oh my gosh, like it's just working as if there was no power cut. Get out of there. Sorry, Matt. And then where's another guy? This guy Luke. Oh mate, his system. So he got 42 panels and a 12 kilowatt inverter capable of 12 kilowatt continuous output. It was like 50 grand maybe, 42 panels, 24 kilowatts of storage, just amazing. And as I said, people 10 years ago in the off-grid space would have said that's not possible. And so back to the old green solar panels, right? The idea here is if you do a single phase solution, it's efficient. All of the appliances in the house can benefit. There's a great backup experience, and believe it or not, it's cheaper than a 3-phase system that's really juicy. Like you might need it. Like, okay, we're going to come back to the 3-phase thing. Right. The only downside to a single-phase solar system is if there's any 3-phase appliances. Where's my mouse gone there? If there's any 3-phase appliances, like a welder in the shed, there's a little man. He's got his thing, and he's holding a welder, right? And he's welding something, right? If there's a 3-phase welder in the shed, it's only going to get solar from one phase. But I've had clients tell me all the time, I'm happy paying for the energy that my welder uses. You know, I only use it once a month, right? I'm happy to pull 3 phases from the power lines for it. You know, great. I don't want to discharge my solar battery for my welder anyway. That's for heating, that's for cooling, that's for lights, you know? But hey, actually, you're not going to be paying for all of the welder. You're going to be paying for 2/3 of the welder here and here. 1/3, eh? 1/3 is going to come from the solar system, right? So that's pretty cool. But that's kind of like the whole single phase, 3-phase thing. Now, the other thing as well is in the world of solar, you can only sell 5 kilowatt per phase to the grid. So that's like if you don't use the solar, you sell it to the grid, and it's 555. Now, that means that there is a limit to how much you can sell, and if you have a large single-phase solar system, you're going to be banging your head on the limit here. We've got blogs about that, but you only generate tons of energy during the middle of the day. So if you put a spa pool on, or a septic tank, or a hot water cylinder, which pulls like 3 kilowatt, then you can really mitigate the export limit. Or if you're charging a battery, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a big problem. We've got a client that has 32, maybe 34 panels, 450 watt, and a big Tesla Powerwall. Well, it's not big, 13.5 kilowatt hours. This is up in Mangawhai, and yeah, like his system's just cranking, and he doesn't really lose all that much energy. He's got 3 deer freezers, he's got he's got a pool heater, he runs his ducted heat pump all day. Single phase solar system with 30 something solar panels. Oh, and that guy I was telling you about, Luke Rolliston, 42 panels, single phase system, and he's over the moon, right? If you generate too much on single phase, you just need to have a battery that's the right size and time some of your appliances, such as your hot water. So anyway, but I want to let you know, like, I'm not a diehard single phase guy. Like, of course not. I'd love to see beautiful three phase systems go in, but the conversation is cost, right? If you're approaching solar and you're going, yeah, I've got a small to medium home, we use 12,000 kilowatt hours a year, someone told us we need to do three phase, that looks really expensive. What's the other option? Well, single phase might be your best three phase option. But again, I'm not 100% diehard. I just want to provide the insights. One of the notes in here about the cables, what are the size of those three phase cables going into your house, right? Because in some rural places, you got 63 amp coming per phase, and awesome. So, because 63 amps is heaps. And maybe the cable's 63 amps, but the power lines and the transformer, the infrastructure wasn't there 20 or 30 years ago. But if you've got neighbors down the road now, and instead of being the only person on a 10-kilometer stretch, there's like 50 homes, then you can use single phase, especially if, because you're going to have solar and a battery, right? Like if you made your three phase home single phase without solar, you might get the odd problem. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about putting a large single phase system with a battery. But we need to think about the size of those cables, because if you're a home that only has 332 amp cables coming in, then yeah, that matters a lot. We'll talk about that. You've basically got 7 kilowatt of peak draw, which is, it's not all that much. For some homes, I mean, it's a lot for others. So we'll come back to that. Yeah. Lots of information there. We've got another blog on the behemoth system. One behemoth system to rule them all. And this is all about, 25 kilowatt three-phase inverters with load balancing. If you want to spend 45K, get more panels, get a bigger battery, get a large three-phase inverter, and wow, you have the zombie apocalypse system. And if you want the zombie apocalypse system, then let me know. We'll get you the best price on it. Recently got 2 quotes for a guy who wanted 50 panels and 32 kilowatts of storage. So giant battery, tons of panels on tilts. The winning quote was 50 grand. The next one was like 53K. The highest quote was 70K. So $20,000 of difference right there. Anyways, look, have a look at these blogs. It's just, yeah, three phases. It's not a one size fits all solution, right? We need to talk through your water pumps, your loads, your power bill, your rates, your export limits. There's lots to it. But anyway, I just wanted to take that moment to share some ideas. Thanks for your time. And if we end up working together, it'll be great. See you later.